comes. What do you normally do? Because I run out of things to say. I love you. Now, that's a social disposition. You understand it, right? We have taught you after a certain point, that's the word you use. You still don't have a meaning for it, as Dr. Gill was referencing. You don't have a meaning for it. You just know that's the highest you think you can get in language. I mean, you can add other, adverbs and adjectives. I love you very much. Then you start associating. I'll climb the highest mountain, swim the deepest sea, just to see. You do all those things, trying to get this person to understand what you have internally that they will never ever understand. And when you say to somebody and them say it back, you all pretty much statistically are not saying the same thing. You understand what I mean by that? You have no idea what they mean by it. You all just use the same word. And how do you find out usually that it's disconnected? You or the other person does something that they tell you is inconsistent with love. And your point was, no, it's consistent with what I think of be love. No, now we have some dissonance. Because you're now finding out we don't agree. So then I say, well, what do you mean by love? You start saying, well, I'll feed you or buy you clothes. Well, that seems rather superficial. So anybody, and you said right here, your parents do things for you, like give you housing and food, right? Are they feeding you right now? So they don't matter, right? Based on the way you are circumscribing your definitions. You understand that? Things that you claim to exist must exist perennially for you to account for. Does that make sense? I can't say something is going on in my house if I can't account for it. So I can say I left my house and it was empty. Well, it was when I left. So now you're saying, do your parents love you? Well, last time we saw each other, they did use those words. But you don't have adequate justification to say, I know, and the key term is K-N-O-W. Because that's a weighty term. Many definitions of knowledge, of course there are. But even with your own individual notion of knowledge, you don't want to be flippant or irresponsible with using know when we have other terms like I believe. Because believe is a predicate to knowledge. You cannot know something without ever believing. It's impossible. Impossible. Yes, ma'am?
So what do you believe is the definition of love?
The short answer is, what we have is faith, not knowledge. If you tell me you love me, I decide to accept it. I never try to prove it. That's it. And that's not a bad thing. But what's important is stop adjudicating people's relationship with you. If it's not healthy for you, you get rid of it. But if I say I love you, you don't get well. It is not proper for you to drill me on it. What are you willing to do? How much you got? I mean, come on. And that's sad. This generation, I don't know if it's worse than mine or not, but you all definitely engage in transactional relationships. I mean, you all see these social media notices where people are, what's the name of the show? They judge their versus balloon. What's it called? Doesn't that disturb you?
It does.
No, that's me. Walk out. I don't know what it's called. One of the pocket balloons, which represent what? Denial, rejection. Predicated on what? Your look. And it was sad. I saw one, I can't watch it anymore. I saw one with 10 women or 10 men or whatever. Yes, they did. I don't know the show, but I'm telling you, they start popping balloons. And what was disturbing was that they popped it based on the way he was dressed. They wanted to put the damn balloons back together when they found out he did. That's what I mean by transaction. So he said, I'm a attorney. I guarantee they could have put the balloons back together. They would have. Which represents saw, but you enjoyed what you heard, and you were about to try to drag as much out of that brother for as much time, yes. Because if somebody come out and said, oh, he's attracted to my holy looks, I'm unemployed. With a little stain. See? You don't get to have that conversation. She was saying, are you between jobs? No, you don't get away with that. La Rochefoucauld, old white man philosopher, made a wonderful statement. If we never learned the word love, we would never love. No, you gotta let that marinate. What I'm trying to show you is we socially give you language to account for biological, chemical, physiological responses to the word. So when you feel a certain way, we tell you to say love. Without that, you'd be stuck just feeling. Yes, sir.
You may not love, but you can still do the actions that come with the word.
Yeah. But you don't. But think about not knowing what to say. This is my favorite. I always tell students one of my favorite social media. Linda, listen. Linda. I mean, if you've never seen it, it's one of the most brilliant illustrations of the limitations of language. He doesn't have a vocabulary to account for what he wants his mother to understand. So all he gets frustrated, like he closes like, Linda, listen. There's nothing to listen to. She's like, say it. Listen, Linda. He just keeps doing it. Well, that's representative of what I'm saying. If we remove certain concepts and terms, that makes it more difficult. Now, that also represents the fact that he understood language for the other. He was trying to get her to understand what he was quite clear about. And we as adults do that. That's when you get in an argument with your friends. That's not what I meant. You said it. Well, hold on, let me do it this way. It's too late now. You can't come back from that. You're going to add on something, but if you said the wrong thing, yeah, we pretty much done. And for those of us like me, I'm like, oh, yeah, I hear you. One thing to get it the last time. Last time? Okay, that's what you meant. All right, I'll call you back. You never forget. It's not about what I do. It's the kind of person I am. I may do the wrong thing from time to time, but my responsibility is to extend humanity to everyone equally without deciding their value because I decided what they're doing is wrong. That's a problem. I have to be able to keep humanity at the highest level. So as you all come back, you'll start seeing how people transact with you. Even senior year, when you were in high school and college, all of a sudden people are like, where are you going next year? Didn't talk to you for 4 years of college. I'm literally telling you that. We got together, but where you going? Nowhere. I'll be unemployed. Because I had this disposition of why now? I've been seeing you every day for 4 years. Now, to Dr. Neal's point, I can be of service to you. Like power comes. Doesn't that make me suspicious? Do you all know that Hillary Clinton chose Bill Clinton? They were in Yale Law School. She finished first in her Yale Law class. She went down to get him and told him she would make him president. You understand that? So they've been transactional from day one. Like, I'm gonna do this for you. And what was the quid pro quo? He messed it up. The quid pro quo was, I'll get it for you. Understanding how sexist America is, I'll do my thing while you're president, and then it's my turn. And he messed it all up. For you youngins, I don't want the older people know how he messed it up. Because he had been profligate and trifling when he was going, so that was not new. The man was known to engage sex workers. They were brought into the governor's men. That was none of that was new. He just did it at the wrong place at the wrong time for Hillary Clinton. Right? So what I'm trying to get at here is how then do we remain genuine to ourselves and others when language is going to be a barrier to giving an account of our actual reality? And that actual reality can never be articulated to another person. It can't really be just demonstrated. This is why you love every day as if it were your last, which means you do what you can do with the aspiration of strengthening another person's faith in your claim to love them. So you don't neglect your parents by saying, I already talked to my mother. I saw him 2 days ago. I don't need to call and check on him. I just told you, I was just about to call my advisor. He lives in Israel, Jewish scholar. Paul Mendes Floor, brilliant. And I would just call him. I know this is going on in Israel, and he would immediately tell you this is horrible what the Palestinians are doing. And we just sit there talking about it. Him and Israel, me and the U.S. And I sat there, as everybody knows, with regret. Was there any way for me to avoid the possibility of missing out? No. But you always regret not reaching out or engaging when somebody dies. When you go to a funeral, the loudest person is the most suspicious. At least in my family, I just make it existential. I had a cousin who died, I had some other, they jumped on the casket. Y'all know life. I mean, they jumped. I mean, I'm telling you, they were on top of it holding the casket like this. No. But more importantly, that's for you. That ain't for them. Which is part of getting back to language functions like that. What you say to the world, you're trying to give an account of a reality that you assume that needs to be exposed. So this is why we must be careful with the language we use. Depriving women, particularly of the right to be humans, is often communicated through language. Disparaging remarks, condescending remarks, the way we treat trans brothers and sisters, and gay brothers and sisters, you think it's funny. You think it doesn't matter. It does, even if they laugh. Even when I have had over my 20 years of teaching a gay brother student, and they know you don't say certain things. I don't care how cute it is, I don't think, no. Because the word hurts me. I'm old enough to know that faggot is derogatory. Yes, I am. Sis, I don't lie. Not in my presence, you're not doing it. And you don't have priority of use because you claim to be in the set of things that are. No. The same way you don't get to be a nigger around me. No, that's on your own time. Go do the damage to yourself, right? But not around me. And the point of love is, how do you communicate what you feel about or believe about somebody when you use language? What are you saying to them? Do they really understand what you mean? Oh, we have so many literary forms. Double entendres. Some people don't catch it. In Valencian language, you can say the same thing and have different meanings. You understand what I mean by that? If I were to say to you, you are my nigga, that's contextual. You understand that, right? Do you understand that? For me to say you are my nigga depends on what year we're talking about. So it's not innocuous. Do you understand this? A black woman being a bad bitch.
Talk about it. Talk about it. Preach.
And again, I always tell students, I'm old. All right, my fault. But I still hope that I can love you in ways that I would take a chance on hurting you. Do you understand that? I'd rather err on the side of caution than to say it to you when I'm down and end up hurting somebody. The world is not your oyster when you get to say and do whatever you want. And what I mean by that is, if I say you my nigga, he hears it, it hurts him, but you and I are good. That's a level of narcissism, because we would even say, shh, that's on you, dog. But, you know, we got our own understanding of it. You need, huh? And I tell students and assistants every day I go to my mother's house around the corner, I grew up in this neighborhood. She says, are you telling the boys not to say nigga? Because my mother's 85. To hear nigga could cause her to sweat and cry. She grew up. To hear it means danger. And you look at it and say, well, you know, language is valuable. Of course it is. But for black folk, I want us to get to the position, that's one word we would not negotiate with. We ain't doing it. I don't know a Mexican who likes spit. Wait. I mean, do you understand? Like, why did we decide? Now I do, and I'm not a psychologist, some of y'all in here might be psychology counselors, but I do need to answer to this. Most oppressed groups assume that you can re-inscribe meaning by using the word that destroys you. Yes, look at many modern groups, gay brothers and sisters, women, black folk. We will use and incorporate language that was meant to destroy us as if, and this is the worst thing students say, how do y'all phrase it? No, we're recapturing it. Reclaiming it. It was never yours. I mean, it amazes me how someone will say, you can't reclaim it. And like I said, language is contextual, of course it is. But what I'm making an argument for, I'll make it a paradox. Yes, language changes, but not that word. That's the one we're not going to let switch up. Yes, ma'am.
Don't you think that that's kind of like not true though? Because words only give the meanings that we ascribe to them. So if somebody believes if they take back what that word means, then how can you say that they're not?
So from now on, I'm not just referring to you as asshole. Is that good? No, is it good?
Yeah, but cultures, if a culture comes to a general consensus about how they want to.
We never have those.
We have those.
No, we have not come to a consensus that there is good.
Well, we know that it's not a rock to read.
Yes, we do.
Well, as far as the black community,
yes. There are many people in this room. No. You think about this. There are subgroups. No, there are subgroups who do use it as their assumption, right? The problem is, even for you, I would wager, I could put you in a room where you'd be uncomfortable with it. I think so. What's a white woman sitting around talking about, I got 3 nigga friends. No, listen, I got white women, you in a group of white women at work, I got 3 nigga friends.
I just said between our community and black people, it's ascribed to different meaning than it is for people outside of us to use it. That's why they said the only black people can say it, because we're the only ones that change the meaning of what it is to mean to us.
Now tell me this, how do you think that group of people you're talking about changed it?
By reclaiming it and using it as art.
But you can't reclaim it, it was already ascribed to
By
you.
claiming it and giving it a different meaning.
But how did you give it a new meaning?
By using it in different contexts.
Like, I hate that nigga?
No.
I don't like niggas? Niggas are trying
But even still saying I hate that nigga is a different context than how you would say that that's like you're a slave. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, when you say nigga now,
It's not reduced to a slave,
person
though.
or something like that, like, or somebody.
I got you. Great point. I'm not reducing it to enslavement. Post-enslavement, it was still used to oppress and to marginalize black people.
Right, but when I say I hate that nigga, I'm not using it as it was used to marginalize people. I'm not doing that no more.
Think interestingly enough, that's not your choice. You know why?
It is my choice.
No. You know why? Language is for the other. So if you said that to me, it hurt. You understand that? You don't get to now say it shouldn't hurt. You don't get that right. You can't say something to somebody and tell them it doesn't hurt. That makes no sense.
You can't tell them it doesn't hurt, but if it hurts, it would hurt in a different context than it would because it's a different definition for the word.
But what my point is, I'm telling you it hurts me, hypothetically. You don't have any other privileges about my response. The same way if I say I love you, I'm hoping that you understand something, but I don't get to tell you how to respond to it.
No.
Then I'm represented, which means I can't say a whole lot of stuff. I'll say something in class. Somebody will be like, well, you should have said that. Why? Because that might trigger somebody. Nigga didn't trigger? No. The idea is somebody will say, refer to a woman as a bitch or a bad bitch under the false assumption she should embrace it because you thought it was positive, and now you're going to tell her what it means. Back to love. I'm going to tell you. You don't get the solution. select the meaning of the term. I'm telling you. And what's amazing is, then I'm going to go so far as to tell you you shouldn't react the way that you react. That's amazing. So if I should mind, the difficulty is how this gulf between assuming what you believe is predicated on behavior and language, knowing that both of those may not be accurate, but then again, trying to tell you what you're supposed to do in light of certain stimulus. So somebody hits you in the back of the head, they get upset like, dude, you're like, oh man, you overreacting. Do you understand how problematic that is?
That sounds.
And metaphorically, that's what white folk been doing for a long time. That ain't hurt that bad. Enslaved the country. That's post-hoc error problem. It really didn't come on down. How are you going to talk me down from my pain because you don't want to live knowing you hurt me? No, that's quite inconsistent. So what I mean, you better look at all the variances of that term, because the poet is going to push them all. It's going to push every term, which forces you now to become more imaginative like the poet. Because what you'll say is, I thought I knew the definition of that, but it doesn't appear that the poet is using it appropriately. Well, yeah, they are. You just didn't know that. So go back, faggot. If I just say faggot, that has no concrete meaning. But if I say, give me one of your faggots, and I'm in Great Britain, I'm going to say it. If you want an archaic notion of faggot, it's kindling wood. You northerners don't know what kindling wood is. It's the small little pieces of wood we use to start our lives. But if I refer to a student as being a faggot, you see that's 3 different meanings right there. But we fail to force ourselves to imagine the levels and the variances of the language we use. And then we force other people, as I said before, we force other people to accept whatever we say. Okay. I mean, that's amazing. You will force somebody to embrace your meaning without allowing them to decide, this is how I take it you just said. And parents do this to you, some of the old school parents, change your tone. Do y'all understand what they're getting at? You need to change the way you say it. I don't want to go to the store with you. She said, you're going to do that again. Then we used to say, it was 6 of us, I was younger than 6. And we would sit there, and you look like, maybe he would have, she would have changed that. I mean, 5 minutes to change that before we leave. And I'm going to the room for it. You know why she went to the room? Calm down. Calm down before she grabbed one of us. And you come back up and say it again. If I may, can I just stay home? Even if you say the same thing, Mom, I really don't want to go to the store. But that matters. Language is so complex, but at the same time, it never accounts for what you really want people to know. It doesn't. Which forces the thinking person, the reasoning person, the caring person to always massage the language you use to communicate with people. So that's why I don't say certain words, because I'd rather try my best at a limited structure than to be lazy and assume that everyone has to accept whatever I say. That's lazy. Well, I ain't really mean that. You take it that way, you take it. The minute you do say this to me, that's the way you want to take it, that's the way you take it. But why did you talk to me? You did not say anything to me. And you literally, consciously, willingly decided to test the water. That's how people get slapped in the house. I know the generation. What you are asking someone when you speak to them is to share themselves with you. Anytime you talk to someone else, you're asking, without saying, may I please have some of your life? May I please ask you to listen to me, to share with me, to be with me? And this ain't people you know, it's any person you talk to, any person you speak with. If you There's nothing else to be done. And so I may have made a false presupposition about the willingness to be human and humane without being transactional. Now, I know people disagree with me, that's good. No statement questions? Well, I know your definition of love. Oh, I have no definition, I just try my best to act right. And I fail. I mean, I have children, and the older they get, oftentimes causes me to feel worse. Because I think most parents, I start seeing what I could have done different, what I should have done different. Right? And then people say, oh, you're too hard on yourself. No, because to be a human requires critical reflection on your life consistently and honestly. I know there are things I should have done. And so I would never want to put a singular or multiple definition on love. I'd rather have. You remember James Baldwin saying, I know? Remember that quote? I just about to go with it. I know. When you try to account for this, that's what you say. Do. You understand what that is? Don't tell me you don't hate black people. Don't tell me you respect gay people. I know what you believe by what you do. It's what you do. Now, I know some of you are a little afraid of that, but sometimes I do the wrong thing, yeah. But there was a thought before that action. So you decided to act to the thought that preceded the action without thinking about the implications of the action. That's problematic. So what does this mean? This is how I engage in something called the absurd. When someone gets to the point of life when they fail to gain a certain type of meaning, most people in contemporary terms refer to Friedrich Nietzsche. There are many ways to read Nietzsche. Some philosophers read Nietzsche as having a sense of something called disorientation, that individuals live in the world with the assumption that nothing has meaning. Nothing. It's absolutely void. Therefore, they call it nihilism. Nihil, nothing. There's another sense that Nietzsche represents that's called despair. That there is meaning, but you can't gain it. That second one for me is always the way I look at black folk, poor people. The idea that there's something to aspire to and you can never have it, but you always see it, you always hear it. Freedom. You're always looking at the world trying to figure out how it is that some people have been imbued with the ability to access what you can't access. Women. Still women. The issue right now in this presidential campaign has nothing to do with black, white, and otherwise. And then, what topped it off? Black. So when they talk about these Negro men who claim they don't want to vote for her, they come up with these reasons. No, dude, it's a woman. Because you voted for too many men who have the same problems. So all of a sudden now, what's she gonna do with black folk? Y'all that's married. Because I ain't gonna marry man, sorry. I'm not. Because it wasn't about what you're gonna do with black folk. Well, the issue is she's being held to a standard that's unfair. And so the idea of living in a world, seeing the star but never able to reach it, never even intimating as if you can reach it. So this isn't the claim that Morehouse holds a crown over your head. No, it's not about the crown over your head. And also the crown is never supposed to be worn, you know that. They keep telling you Morehouse people crown. You're never supposed to go talk to it, ever. But the idea is that you see a reality that you cannot partake of, and that reality represents all the freedoms and rights that you are due. And now your desires are frustrated. Now what do? You quit. So Al Camus introduces what? Suicide. A quitting, a giving up on it. But he doesn't say to commit commit suicide. His point is embrace the situation you find yourself, and that's how he defines freedom. So even if I can't, I respect where I am, and that's the work I do. It's the famous quote of Booker T. Washington. What did he say about the buckets? Buckets where you are. Whenever I am in the world, I must decide this is the point I engage the world. I don't get to say I can't breathe. I'm not as fast, I'm not as strong, I'm not as articulate. That's also the story of Moses, really, right? Did you all know that Moses was inarticulate? And this is the philosophical part about Moses. Moses was so-called historical. Supposed to have a stammer, a stutter. You want to know that? And when his conversation, which is funny, with God transpired, the issue was Moses rejected not out of disrespect, but he thought he was not articulate enough to do it. Now, why is it philosophically interesting? From Genesis all the way through is about language. What was Adam's responsibility? To name everything. What was at the beginning of the story, really? In the beginning was the Word. Right? Representing how profound being able to articulate the reality is for you being able to keep your wits about you. Not to lose your head and all about you or lose it and blame it on you. Right? That's extremely important. So when I'm in a state of despair and I can't articulate, I can't achieve, I can't get, I quit life. It also happens in the first chapter of Souls of Black Folk, of our spiritual strivings, when the voice metaphorically refers to other black men that have the same opportunity that I've had. The skies haven't been so blue for them. Remember that? No. The walls have been high, unscalable, he said. Because what I have, I appreciate, and I know it's a great value to be had. And they have become frustrated. And then this is the kicker. They yell out to God, why have you made me this way? Why have you put me in this situation? We can even translate it. This is unfair. And what is the response? Great metaphor. They just beat their fist against the ground. Now, y'all grew up in a generation who was not literary, but banging your fist against the ground is a paradox. Is it relief or is it suffering you're looking for? Do you understand that? To beat against concrete, is that relief? I mean, you're looking for resolution, but you're hurting yourself. You're destroying yourself with the assumption that there was supposed to be some redemption in the behavior. So my job, and I'm hoping that I can review with students when I teach, is to get them to understand, linguistically, we are to assist our brothers and sisters in coming up with a language that would assist them in accounting for the world they live in. That's the role of the intellect for me. Because I've been given the opportunity to do the work that they can't do, because my mother did domestic work. She wasn't going to sit around and read Wittgenstein and Searle and other stuff. I got you. And the way you discover the language of the oppressed is to rehearse it, to experiment with it. Tell me this, do you think this gets at what you're going through? In the black church, the old black church, had to do civic center type entertainment show. In the old school church, the reason you got amen was because you were articulating your ideas appropriately. You weren't telling them something they didn't know. They were just letting you know, good way of saying it. That's what we must do for the oppressed, those of us who've been given this opportunity. We go back in our community and rehearse with them, practice with them, experiment. Is this what you mean when you cried the other day? Sometimes they'll say, maybe they ain't no language. And I say, yes, ma'am, yes, sir. I'll keep pushing. But I don't want to leave you out here saying, Linda, listen. No. I want to give you words. Because I want to be respectful. Some of the words I will give them, some of you all don't like. But I'm more interested in the practicality of expiating, of getting this out of the system. We always talk about catharsis. We even try to encourage black people to go to counseling. Well, we can self-soothe too. Oh, we can self-soothe. Part of the self-soothing is a disclosure of your pain and suffering to the person who suffers. That's you. So you gotta be honest with yourself to say, that hurt me. I was pretending when I laughed. You know, logically we call fallacies of laughing when you're in pain what? Laughter is a diversionary technique, right? But also in psychology and psychoanalysis, Freud writes thoroughly on laughter. Again, diversionary. You're trying to offset the pain. So we have to be honest with ourselves in ways that broach a new way of moving through the world. So language has to be the first one. The second one is understanding our relationship to humanity must be one of care primarily. So anybody interested, Carol Gilligan, psycho-philosopher, I guess you call it. So I want you, I'm not looking for, again, agreement, but it frustrates me whenever we fail to think about the possibilities of being more humane. I can't take lazy thinking. It's irritating. And the lazy thinking undermines your ability to maximize who you are. And lastly, this is the problem we're going to have with AI. The reason why I have trepidation about AI is because they already don't read. You already don't read. Any additional assistance, damn, let's just give this up. I'm going, wow. Now they don't have to read. I always ask students randomly, how many telephone numbers do you know from memory? I'll tell you all, people my age, we knew about 30. Oh, yes, we did. From memory. Some of the students have said, well, maybe 1 or 2. Now, that seems superficial. The issue is, there's no initiative on your part to move beyond the technology. You accept the technology, is it by definition, doing it quicker and faster or more of it is better than doing it. And that's where I see we're going. And the question becomes, what then, if any, value do you have for society? If you watch commercials that black folks have already been replaced, we used to complain that the commercials represented stereotypical black behavior, dancing and singing. Now, you all have invited and celebrate white folks who sing and say they're better than all the black people. That ain't white folks' fault, that's your fault. And white folks, I know a lot of people who can sing well, but you decided Eminem was the greatest rapper, not just a rapper. That's problematic. The Dion woman, Celine Dion, average voice, you all make it the greatest voice. You play into it. It's fine to say black, white, otherwise you sing well. We don't do that. We take it to the next level. That's the greatest voice. What's the other woman? No, she's alive now. Yes, I can see her. Adele. Wow. She's singing well enough, but I grew up in the old black church. No, she came home, we would be like, help her. Because in my church was harsh. Your 6-year-old can sing. One of the older women would go over to the parents and whisper, I know you want your baby to sing. That ain't her problem. No, that ain't her problem. I know you on the generation that hurts my feelings and call on it. They make me feel isolated and alone. But this is very important because AI, with all of its merits, won't be what it could be because we won't be who we should be. So we're going to go into and acquiesce everything. And it's been around for a while. This isn't new. It's catching on to the quotidian. It's the everyday person now who get it. They've been using this and they've been bombing innocent people for years with drones. Same new. They've had philosophy of mind particularly, we're still having a problem with what we want to call that intelligence. Because we wonder what's the definition of intelligence has to do with ascribing to a machine. I mean, what's the question I asked in philosophy of mind? How do we know other people have minds? And if it's a functional view, which is the dominant notion in philosophy of mind, which says that if you have the adequate input and the appropriate response internally, that is, information that is present, built upon new information to create the appropriate output, now we call machines thinking things. Because you can reduce thinking to those functions, not to that I hurt your feelings when I said what I said. Do you feel okay? Are you good today? We don't do it. So guess what's going to, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'll say it today. Will AI get the right to vote? Be careful, I'm telling you. Will AI get the right to vote? We thought it was extreme when they started calling corporations people, individuals. Y'all don't remember that. The vote older, y'all remember that? They defined corporations as individuals. Yes! So for your generation, the youngins, y'all might be voting against AI for president. Because if you keep ascribing anthropomorphism, like you constantly use human terms to talk about the machines, do you respect an AI